I'd like to start with an interesting fact. For example, if I were to say there's a franchise that has won 2 championships, neither of which was an NBA title, it plays in the world's largest market but has lived in the shadows for years, I'd be stating the facts quite accurately. And Brooklyn soared to the heights with Dr. J, then traded him away. It made it to the finals with Jason Kidd. It was on the verge of winning a championship with Kevin Durant, but ultimately faced disappointment. This team didn't become what it is today in just a single season. It got here through bold, crazy decisions made over the years. So we're going to talk about the 10 critical moments that will forever change the history of the Brooklyn Nets. Before we get to number 10, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because when the NBA season starts, you'll keep seeing content you'll love right here. Number 10, the night it all began. Exactly 59 years ago in 1967, the team was born under the name New Jersey Americans in a small arena called the Teaneck Armory. The first season ended with 36 wins and 42 losses, and there was a single-game playoff qualifier. However, the arena had rented out the space to a circus that night. The game was moved to another venue. The team lost and was subsequently eliminated. This unfortunate start, in a way, sums up the franchise's fate. Greatness and tragedy, unfortunately, went hand in hand from day one. The story of this team would largely come to be defined by the coexistence of hope and disappointment. Number 9, the Doctors' Golden Age. I'd like to point out that when they moved to the New York Nets, they joined a legendary team. His name was Julius Erving, also known as Dr. J. I'm talking about a man who glided through the air and single-handedly legitimized the entire league. He was named a Most Valuable Player 3 times and led the Nets to 2 ABA championships in 1974 and 1976. These are the franchise's only 2 championships. The 2 banners still hanging from the arena's ceiling today are, in a sense, the Doctor's legacy. In other words, he was the one who truly taught this league what star power meant. Unfortunately, however, this glory was not to last very long. Number 8, a lost future. One star was truly shining during his years in New Jersey. His name was Dražen Petrovic. I'm talking about arguably Europe's best shooter and a fearless warrior. In the 1993 season, he averaged 22.5 points per game. Then on June 7th, 1993, he lost his life in a car accident in Germany. He was only 28 years old. The Nets retired his number 3 jersey for good after this tragedy. It wasn't just the loss of a player, it was, in a sense, the loss of the future. Of course, the biggest question still hangs in the air for many. What if Petrovic hadn't lost his life in that tragic accident? Could this team have managed to win a championship? Number 7, Kidd arrives. The franchise takes off. By the late 90s, the Nets had become something of a running joke in the league. Then, in the summer of 2001, everything changed. Stephon Marbury was traded, and Jason Kidd arrived in his place. In just one season, the team managed to reach 52 wins, a jump of exactly 26 games. With Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson in their prime, the Nets made it to the NBA Finals 2 years in a row. Then the Lakers won in 2002 and the Spurs in 2003. They may not have won a championship, but the Nets had finally managed to sit at the big boys' table. In this way, the franchise was essentially building its identity. Number 6, rise then fall. 22 years ago, in December 2004, the Nets took a huge risk. Vince Carter joined the team in exchange for a first-round draft pick and Alonzo Mourning. The trio of Kidd, Carter, and Jefferson was nothing short of breathtaking. Carter, in particular, averaged an impressive 23.6 points per game over 374 games in a Nets uniform. However, Kenyon Martin had already left and the team just couldn't make it past the first round. A gradual decline then set in. They finished the 2009 to 2010 season with 12 wins and 70 losses. They became the first team in history to start a season 0-18, and with that, the team, whose window for a championship had closed, had hit rock bottom. Number 5, crossing the river. By 2012, the franchise had left New Jersey and moved to Brooklyn. It was owned by billionaire Mikhail Prokhorov. while Jay-Z served as both a partner and the team's de facto face. Thus, the brand new Barclays Center opened on September 28th. Black and white uniforms, a new logo, and a brand new identity were on full display. Of course, this wasn't just a simple move. It was a direct challenge that broke the Knicks' monopoly on the city. Years later, Joe Tsai purchased the team for $2.35 billion. This was the highest price ever paid for an American sports team at the time. The previous record was $2.2 billion. And with that, Brooklyn was firmly on the map. Number 4, rising from the ashes. After the super team broke up, the Nets were left with almost no draft picks. General manager Sean Marks managed to devise a methodical plan. 2 years ago, on July 6th, 2024, Mikal Bridges was traded to the Knicks on the other side of the city, bringing in 5 first-round draft picks in return. Of course, this was likely the first trade in history where so many draft picks were given up for a player who wasn't a star. Then, in 2025, the Nets managed to select 5 players in a single draft round for the first time in franchise history. A brand new core formed, led by Igor Dem, and this young roster, led by Jordi Fernandez, served as the very foundation of a long-term rebuild. Number 3, the super team dream. On June 30th, 2019, the Nets managed to shake up the entire league in a single night. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both signed with Brooklyn that same summer. The city had already begun to go wild with championship dreams. In 2021, James Harden joined the team, and a perfect trio was formed. However, the dream quickly began to turn into a nightmare. On June 19th, 2021, in Game 7 of the series against the Bucks, Durant scored 48 points. This was an NBA Game 7 record. As he made the tying shot, his foot touched the line, and since it wasn't a three-pointer, the game went into overtime. In overtime, the Nets were eliminated. That single centimeter perhaps painfully summed up an entire era. Number 2, original sin. Exactly 50 years ago, the ABA and the NBA merged. However, the Nets were forced to pay a very heavy price for this merger. They were forced to pay the Knicks $4.8 million simply for entering their territory. Left penniless, Roy Bo's only major asset was Dr. J, and he was forced to sell him. On October 20th, Julius Erving was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for $3 million. The Nets thus lost their best player before he had even played a single game in the NBA. Of course, this decision would condemn the team to years of mediocrity. For many, this was actually the deepest wound in the franchise's history. Number 1, the trade that hypothecated the future. On July 12th, 2013, Brooklyn was hungry for a championship and growing increasingly impatient. The front office brought in Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce from Boston. In exchange, they gave up players and 3 unprotected first-round draft picks, 2014, 2016, and 2018. On top of that, they also traded away the 2017 draft pick. Pierce left a year later, Garnett's performance steadily declined, and the championship never came. But the real disaster struck afterward. Those picks turned into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for Boston. Brooklyn had thus gifted its own future to its biggest rival. This is perhaps one of the most devastating trades in NBA history. That is precisely why we've chosen this as the number 1 critical moment that reshaped this franchise's history more than any other. Yes, here are the Brooklyn Nets 10 critical moments. Or to put it another way, we've discussed 10 turning points. Of course, this franchise isn't just about championships or stars. It's about a legend sold off, a lost future, a super team that collapsed, and perhaps dreams that fell short by a hair's breadth. It's fair to say that disappointments have shaped this team's identity just as much as victories have. Will this franchise win its first NBA championship next season? Now, I'd like to leave it up to you. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because once the NBA regular season starts, we'll still be here with content you'll love. Take care until the next video.